Another method used was to put a clove of garlic or onion inside a woman's genitals and ask them to sleep with it. In the morning, they would check her breath, and if they smelled the garlic or onion on her breath, they would deem her tubes clean and ready to have a baby.
Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. My name is TUT'S if you are new, and so without wasting any time, let's get to the video.
The wheat and barley test was only one of the methods that ancient Egyptians used in their long history of nearly 5,000 years. Another pregnancy test would place a supposed pregnant woman on a mash consisting of beer and dates, and pregnancy would somehow be determined by how much she vomited. If you were there to give her the good news, you couldn't go, "Aw," after seeing that. A few decades ago, there was a time when pregnancy tests were available in labs only. Ancient Egyptian women were also reliant on their physicians to test them for pregnancy in the earlier days. A lot of these physicians trusted a hands-on approach. They would rub a certain kind of oil on the woman patient's entire bare body at night and ask her to lie down until morning. Then they would do an inspection, and if they found her fresh and ripe, they would deem her either pregnant or ready to bear a child. Imagine a doctor using those creepy methods and words today. They would not only lose a patient, but maybe jeopardize their license too. Another method used was to put a clove of garlic or onion inside a woman's genitals and ask them to sleep with it. In the morning, they would check her breath, and if they smelled the garlic or onion on her breath, they would deem her tubes clean and ready to have a baby. Yes, the Egyptian physicians believed that all orifices of a woman's body were interconnected, and women's mouths had a straight connection to their genitals. If they couldn't smell shallots on her morning breath, they would deem her barren. Just like that. Then again, despite being obsessed with the cycle of life and death, ancient Egyptians had very little understanding of the human reproductive system. Another bad example of their shortcoming was evident from the fact that they assumed that men have that time of the month just like women. It was quite common for Egyptian men to have blood in their excrements, but it was also dismissed as a menstrual cycle. The truth was that schistosomiasis was rampant in ancient Egypt, and it was so common that ancient Egyptians considered blood and pee a good thing. In ancient Egypt, a model family man was the one whose body was the host of an unhealthy number of parasitic worms.
The wheat and barley test was a gender reveal test where the woman would pee into either a barrel of wheat or barley to determine which gender the offspring would be. Yeah, you should go there and do your own research. There's a lot more to it, but yeah, these were very weird tests, but it was like 5,000 years ago, so who can blame them?
The harassment was a serious issue. There is no denying that ancient Egypt was a civilization way ahead of its time with a lot of things they did and how they did them. Women, for one, enjoyed an equal academic, economic, and political status as men. Sadly, they were still considered inferior to men socially. A woman could live independently, work any job that a man could, contract her marriage, buy and sell land, file a lawsuit or divorce, and leave property to whomever she wished. However, socially, they were still not protected from being ridiculed. Like any other social and religious propaganda, ancient Egyptian wisdom and literary text also reasoned the inferiority of women, proposed restrictions on them, and also badmouthed women with liberal natures. Not only that, but catcalling, whistling, and even flashing were common malpractices and scarcely punished. Herodotus mentions in his records that it was common during sacred religious festivals for men to flash their privates at women on the shores of the River Nile while traversing on the boats. This would accompany jeering, catcalling, and teasing. Even in cases of violence and harassment against women, it was common to blame them, especially during the Ptolemaic dynasty. But the most intriguing affair that sets ancient Egypt apart from modern world problems for women was love potions. Egyptians loved magic, and obviously they tried to use it a lot for either exacting revenge or healing or wooing women who weren't even remotely interested in them. They brewed separate potions to win over women of their dreams, force a woman to subjugate to the whims of a man, make a woman enjoy bedding with someone they didn't fancy, and there were even potions to ruin others' marriages out of jealousy. Obviously, their effectiveness could be assumed to be highly questionable. The recipes of these potions were as insane as their purposes. One involved combining dandruff from a man who had died with barley, apple pips, blood from a tick that bit a black dog, the blood of the person who ordered the potion, and their semen. This concoction was to be planted in the beverage of the client's beloved to make them submit to their wishes. Seriously, if one could have someone willingly drink a potion that foul, they are already in love and you don't need any mess like that.
Yeah, this was, I think, common in lots of places. Like back then, things were very different and very weird. Yeah, I'm glad I was born in this era. This era is still weird, but not as weird as back in the day.
The witness battering program. They say snitches get stitches, and it was established very early in human history with Egypt. But it isn't at all what you're thinking. In fact, both snitching and stitching were mandatory by law. After the plot to terminate Ramesses III was successful, the guards not only rounded up the conspirators, but also all of the people who were working in the pharaoh's palace and court. The court ruled that all of them had plenty of opportunities to overhear the plot and warn the guards. Because they didn't, and it resulted in the pharaoh's death, it was decreed to have their ears chopped off no matter if they were aware of the plot or not. Such precedents, though unfair, spooked people enough to rat on any criminal prep work they came across in their surroundings.
Now, the ancient Egyptian guards didn't play good cop, bad cop at all. It was bad cop all the way. They were very offhand about tormenting and hurting people during investigations. Whether they were potential suspects or potential witnesses, it was common for them to begin an interrogation by tying the subject to a stake and beating their hands and feet until they felt satisfied with the answers. Even suspects' friends and relatives were subject to such harsh punishment.
Obviously, with such treatment, it was quite possible that people may confess falsely to simply stop the torment. And surprisingly, ancient Egypt guards did acknowledge that. This is why they would thoroughly investigate cases and crime scenes to make sure they would get the right person prosecuted. For witnesses, the torment wasn't only physical, but psychological as well. There were no oaths to take before delivering testimony back then. Instead, ancient Egypt courts would ask the witness to describe in detail how they would like to be punished. The punishments were chosen by the court already, but it made the witness realize what the cost of their lying would be and discouraged them by planting the fear of it. The mummification industry. If you live in the modern United States, dying is not cheap. It takes over $15,000 for a funeral in the U.S. these days and can be a huge toll on the savings of a middle-class income family. Even cremation costs about $7,500. So imagine a nation that was so obsessed with the afterlife that they lived their entire life preparing for it and then had an elaborate funeral ritual to preserve their body for hundreds of years. How much did that funeral cost? Well, it wasn't easily affordable for sure. Found in the writings of a Greek traveler, it is mentioned that during the 1st century BC, the cost of mummification would have been 1 talent of silver. That's 30 kilograms, or 66 pounds of silver, for the best possible mummification treatment. It was filthy expensive. However, it is believed that as things had changed a lot under the Ptolemaic dynasty, this pricing could have been inflated. The cost of the supplies of mummification today, including linen, sodium carbonate decahydrate, or commonly known as the natron salt, resin, and incense would cost about $3,600. But we haven't even added the cost of labor yet, which was the most intricate element of the process. It's fair to assume that to be mummified today cost around $70,000. In fact, presently, various businesses actually mummify the bodies of people as well as pets. Pet mummification can cost from $7,000 to over $100,000. Naturally, such an expensive operation wasn't feasible for everyone. This is why people from lower classes would resort to incomplete mummification. They would skip having a sarcophagus or even a coffin and leave some or all organs remaining intact during the dehydration of the body. Those who were dirt poor would sadly resort to just wrapping the deceased in cloth and burying them in the desert sand for a few weeks to dry them naturally. Unlike the rich, who would rest for eternity in a tomb painted with inscriptions from the Book of the Dead, the Pyramid Text, and the Coffin Text, the poor would be buried in unnamed graves in a cemetery. King Tut's cursed mummy.
The curse of King Tutankhamun can be considered the most popular hoax related to the ancient Egyptians. When Howard Carter found the untouched tomb of the young pharaoh, he did find uncursed treasures and wealth that were never seen before by an archaeologist. Carter himself lived for decades after the controversy.
However, there was one thing that was alive in King Tut's tomb. Let's just say that when King Tut was buried, his flagpole was up. Nobody knows exactly why, but Tut was the only Egyptian ruler that was found mummified with a pitching tent. The most bizarre aspect of the mystery surrounding why his tower was pointing north while being buried is that some historians believe that it didn't even belong to King Tut. Some people think that his embalmer switched his real thing with that of a more impressive donor. Gender bender.
Yeah, there were a lot of theories when it came to the curse of King Tut, but yeah, it was a hoax, and but still fun to see what people thought of it, and a lot of treasures were stolen. But the thing is, I've never understood why people go out of their way to uncover bodies and tombs. Like, imagine having a family member like dead and buried somewhere in like your family like graveyard or something, and then some people years from now come and just dig it up and do all kinds of studies. But I guess they're dead, so it doesn't matter. But where I'm from, that's considered taboo and should not ever be done. But what do you think?
The idea of fixed genders may be a thing that is rooted in history, but it was definitely not a thing that originated in Egypt. To give you more context, Egyptians were quite cool with gender fluidity and believed that the genders were not part of the afterlife. Egyptian mythology is full of moments where many gods changed their genders, and they believed that humans would change genders after death.
As women were considered socially inferior to men, women with fulfilling lives were thought to transform into men in the afterlife. Their highly proactive gods also had more features apart from the two conventional genders. For example, it wasn't uncommon that Egyptian goddesses were represented with beards sometimes, and Queen Hatshepsut also tried to present herself with a fake one to become pharaoh.
Do you think we missed anything bizarre or disgusting about Egypt in the video? Tell us in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching Nutty History. Don't forget to like and share, and press subscribe to watch more nutty videos like this.
Yeah, this video is different from the ones I usually react to, but I thought it was fun. And yeah, you should go out there and do your own research, if you're interested in history or Egyptology. And yeah, I'll leave down the link to this guy's original video. You can go check it out if you're interested. And yeah, thank you for watching, and see you amazing people in the next video.
Kick.